All right, welcome everyone to Hot Seat with Cognizant Clay. I'm here with my guest Tim Balz. He is the founder and CEO of Kalogon, which is a smart wheelchair cushion, as well as Freedom chairs. He, in the past, has developed a smart wheelchair for Intel, and he also, just for my nerdy guests, he also interned for SpaceX. So very excited. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, good. I'm really excited for this. It's actually my first podcast in like probably a year, so I'm excited here. Just to start, so you went to the Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology and were a graduate there. Can you just explain what that institute is?
Yeah. So Rose Holman is it's purely, like a math, science, engineering institute. There's no majors other than that. It's a small private institute of technology out in Indiana, and they really focus on, hands-on and like actual like practical implementation of engineering.
Right. Okay. So because I was reading up about it and it said it's one of the top like undergrads for technology specifically. So thanks for just clarifying that because I didn't find that much on it because it is private. So in 2014, you interned with Intel and through the Internet of Things, you actually developed a smart wheelchair, which I find absolutely amazing. I think that is absolutely like just such a cool thing. Just to start, do you remember kind of what your thought process and kind of emotions were behind the idea?
Yeah, so through my nonprofit I founded, I gotten intimately aware of the state of technology for power wheelchairs. I would tear them down, refurbish them, put them back together, and it always struck me how far behind this technology was from the rest of the industry. It's still crazy, and so it became kind of one of my life's goals to try to bring technology to this industry, to the mobility industry, and so I got an opportunity to kind of create my own internship with Intel. I had an opportunity to actually pitch the CEO an idea. So I skipped a bunch of classes and wrote a business proposal trying to balance the incentives of the industry with actually getting technology that will improve people's lives together into a chair.
Exactly. And I find like being a power wheelchair user myself, I found it hasn't progressed that much really. I mean, it could be a lot better than it is, and it's just it is tough, but I mean, thanks for doing what you do. It's absolutely incredible what you're doing. And actually, that product was actually endorsed by Stephen Hawking. Were you able to meet Stephen Hawking?
Unfortunately, no, but I got to interface with his team and him a lot. We were actually planning to fly over there and meet him, but then he had some medical issues, so we were never able to complete the trip. It was definitely a bummer.
That's so cool though to be endorsed by him. I mean, literally one of the smartest people ever and a member of the disability community, which is he was incredible. It's a rest in peace to him, but I mean what he did for people with disabilities was just incredible. So that just sounds like such a cool thing, especially Intel. I mean, that's a big company. That's no private company, right? I mean, that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, well, what most people don't know is I actually, after all the interviews and everything were done, I started like working on how we can commercialize this, and I actually worked with some executives at Permobile, and for free, us and Intel, myself and Intel, we gave all of our IP to Permobile so that they could commercialize it. They actually started doing smart connected wheelchairs with that. Unfortunately, very little of it ever actually made it to the end user, which is definitely a bummer. But it was really cool. We were able to at least get the some of the leaders of the industry thinking about how technology could be used to have technology be mobility technology be leading the rest of the world rather than lagging behind it.
Exactly. And it's just like you say, the use of technology can help so many people, whether it's physically handicapped, like deaf, blind, whatever it is. It's really amazing. Like I use smart technology all the time because I can't lift my arms. So for my lights and my music, my computer, everything is connected to to my Amazon Echo, which is has been an absolute lifesaver. So just moving on a bit. So I'm a huge nerd myself. I love anything space, anything aerospace engineer, and I really want to talk to you before we get to the disability awareness specifically about your internship with SpaceX. I think that is just so cool. And you even worked in the Falcon Heavy department basically, and you proposed a redesign of said Falcon Heavy. Did that ever come to fruition, your idea, or was it more just a pitch to the like the CEO and the top people?
Oh, so that's actually, so that was my internship. So what I was, so I actually went full time there. I worked at
Okay.
SpaceX for another 4 years after that. But for the internship, the problem proposed to me was there was a potential issue with the Falcon Heavy design, and they wanted me to create a test article to discover like how bad the issue was going to be and what are some ways that we could prevent that. So I was on that point, I was in the test team, and so I built that test article to perform that. So I have to be vague and everything. Obviously, tons of NDAs on anything with SpaceX, but yeah, no, I worked on that in Texas with test and stage two. So we worked with the stage two Falcon Heavy, stage two for the Falcon Heavy, and then at the Cape, I actually was one of the first people to work on refurbing rockets. And then I worked with Dragon and Crew Dragon, and then actually worked on Starship before I left to start Kalogon. So I've kind of ran the gauntlet at SpaceX.
Unbelievable. How did you get that internship? Like, how was the interview process of getting that internship?
Ironically, most of the jobs I've gotten are I find creative ways. And so they had some recruiters that were on campus, and I had with some buddies of mine who I was teaching how to do kind of design and build. We took a bunch of old wheelchair parts we were going to throw out and built like a single person electric vehicle out of it. And I got the recruiters to ride it, and they had a great time. And and so I technically, for when I first went there, I never really applied. I just handed them my resume, got them to ride the electric vehicle, and then they had a couple of Rose-Hulman alums who were quite high up in SpaceX, and they worked to help me secure that internship.
Unbelievable. That is so cool. And did you ever meet Elon Musk? I have to ask.
Well, there technically yes. There's a video online at one of the parties where he was jumping up and down, and you can see me there, and then you see he actually spills like his beer on me a little bit. So kind of got to meet him, yeah. So I interacted normally at SpaceX. The goal is, Elon focuses on where the problems are in the company. So you want to avoid him, because if you're meeting him, it means probably what you're working on isn't going well.
Yeah, you've screwed up somewhere along the
Yeah,
line, right?
it's a bad day. Any day you meet Elon is typically a bad day if you're a SpaceX employee, unless it's at one of our parties where we've done well.
Yes, that's always good. I actually remember that video. I did not know that was you. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah, you see me just smiling the whole time. It was a good time. At first I'm like, what is it, like raining? What the heck? And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm cool with this.
There you go, viewers. Tim Balz has had Elon Musk's beer spilled on him. So there you go. That should be your claim to fame right there. I mean, it's Elon
I,
Musk, right?
I mean, it's true. The guy's pretty crazy. The innovation, and just honestly, one of the reasons I worked at SpaceX was to learn how SpaceX was able to so thoroughly disrupt an industry that should not have been that easy to disrupt. And so we actually took a lot of those techniques that we've learned there, not like specific IP or anything, but just like management techniques. What is the philosophy that you go about solving problems? How do you ensure that the problem you solve truly meets the end need? And so we took a lot of those learnings, and a lot of the co-founders of Kalogon I worked with at SpaceX.
Wow, incredible. And just to add to SpaceX, like in terms of working for Dragon and Starship, like did you actually work with the crew that went to the ISS, or was it more free ISS stuff?
So when I was there, we met with them. I wasn't working with them on a day to day, but the stuff
Okay.
I was working on interacted with them. So they very often would come and visit, walk around, ask questions. That most people don't realize the astronauts are like, they're highly technical. They're not just pilots. They have a deep understanding of the hardware. And so when we're the ones that, are working and designing the processes and providing them the hardware, they naturally have a lot of questions, and they're always really excited and so supportive too. When they're like the coolest people ever. I actually have a bunch of stuff over in the other side of the room, all the initial astronauts from before they were selected, which spacecraft they were going to be on. I got them all to sign a remove before flight tag.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I've watched both launches when they sent them up, and it's just like you say, the first private company to basically work with NASA and the ISS, like first privatized crew to make it to the ISS. Like it really is amazing. And Elon is like argued, like people say, like a lot of people say this, but I think he's the most hardworking billionaire probably ever.
No,
He,
that's the key. That's why I wanted to work for him was at the end of the day, regardless of, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the stuff Elon does, but at the end of the day, that guy, he puts his money where his mouth is, but also he puts in the sweat. Uh the number of times I saw and heard about him sleeping on the couch next to a business unit that was having trouble where he would personally go in. Like whenever we were having weld issues on Starship, Elon literally flew down and was like, teach me how to weld. I want to understand why this is so hard and why it's, causing issues. And then Elon worked with them to say, well, let's try this. And then used his connections and expertise and money to help the engineers who were stuck get unstuck. And so that his work ethic is incredible, more than probably anyone I've ever met.
Exactly. And you go back to the PayPal days where he's sleeping 3 hours a night on a beanbag chair just to get his startup going. Like it amazes me how and I mean, I don't know if it's true, but on SNL, him saying he has Asperger's, like if he does truly have Asperger's, that's like he's part of the disability community, right? Like I'm not sure if he does. I mean, I've never he never really verified that, but just what an amazing person. You're right. A lot of things he does are a little
But then,
controversial,
look,
but
yeah, but you got to think, it wouldn't surprise me if he does because one of the reasons why diversity is so important in business is because it lets you look at problems differently. And there's one thing that is certain. Elon looks at problems and challenges very differently, and his unique view about that is what allows him to accomplish things that no one else can. So it absolutely would not surprise me if he had Asperger's because, like I say, he thinks so differently and on a different level than everyone else.
he really does. Yeah, he's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite success stories for sure. Just based off the hard work. Anyway, that's enough of Elon Musk. You're my guest today, so I'll move on. Before I get to the disability awareness, I'm gonna do my little segment called Rapid Fire. I just ask 5 or 6 random questions just to get to know you a little bit better, and then we'll get right to it. So first off, as a foodie, I love food. What is your favorite thing to eat?
Oh my gosh, it changes. I love like Thai food. Like good Thai food is fantastic. I love me some street tacos, a good steak, the boring, typical stuff. But I would say, like Thai food, good Thai food is some of the best food I've ever eaten.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Who is your favorite musician or band?
Oh, see, no, that one is tough because my music is so like diverse and so it changes. So, I guess the chain smokers is one that I've kind of liked. Pretty recently I've been into a lot of their stuff like well over the past couple of years. So I'd say chain smokers.
Good band, good band. Um, as a techie and whatnot, this is a totally random shot in the dark. What is your favorite computer program to use?
Ooh, okay. So I'm a mechanical engineer, so we love Python because it's easy. Most mechanical engineers love MATLAB, but Python and MATLAB, and everyone's gonna make fun of me who's actually a software developer, but those are that's gotta be my two choices.
Definitely. And I read an article. I'll ask the reason behind the question, but your backstory of being in disability involves you quitting sports and joining a like going into tech instead. What is your favorite sport? Like, what would your favorite sport be?
So, favorite team sport. Well, I guess it's sort of an individual team sport. I always loved, like wrestling in high school for school sports, but I would also race dirt bikes, and that was, that's my favorite like sport slash activity. I don't get to do it as much these days, but I absolutely love racing dirt bikes.
Unreal. Yeah, that's my brother-in-law is like a dirt. He used to be a dirt biker. He screwed up his knee, so he doesn't do it as much anymore. But a lot of respect for that. And the last question: can I borrow a few of your IQ points?
Oh, you see, I'm not that smart. What I am is I'm very coachable, and I surround myself with smart people that I can learn from. That's my secret. I'm definitely very rarely the smartest person in the room.
Well, at least you're humble. That's always good, right? I mean, you have to be humble. All right, well, that's it for rapid fire. You did pretty good. You're pretty fast there.
I'll take it.
So just getting into the disability awareness. So there's a backstory that in high school you had a classmate that used a manual chair and he had to be pushed around because he wasn't able to wheel himself. And you kind of thought as a teenager, why is that? Like, why isn't he using a power chair? And you kind of discovered that they're not very accessible monetarily. And the reason he had a manual is because he couldn't afford it. Now, can you just provide a little more to that backstory? Just kind of what went through your head at that time and what kind of relationship you had with your fellow student.
Yeah. So, really what happened was he was able to propel himself, but not very far. Uh, so he would pull the recycling behind his manual chair. It would be like on wheels in a can, and he'd go door to door. And that was, one of the things that he would do as part of one of his classes. And I saw where he was just kind of stuck and he couldn't move it. And for me, I just I had like a lot of like a deep feeling of empathy of like how much does that like it felt like something that shouldn't happen. And when I asked this teacher why didn't he have an electric wheelchair, apparently his insurance company denied it because there's some like Medicare loopholes and things that insurance companies can pull. And they said he could move like 100 yards under his own strength. And for me, I just thought that was absurd that a kid was limited to 100 yards under his own strength. It was absurd. And so for me, I was always raised to look for ways to help people, not wait for people to ask for help. And for me, I saw a problem. I thought I might be able to do something about it and fix it. And one of my best and worst traits is I don't quit, even if it's some. At times, it could probably be the smarter decision. I decided I was going to help him out, and I did whatever it took to get him a chair. And I made the chair perfect for him rather than just him getting a one size fits all product.
Exactly. And like you say, that's empathy versus sympathy, right? I mean, empathy is wondering, A, how can I relate to this person, but B, how can I help them the best way possible instead of just like I'm sure you know this of being in the industry, like we don't want pity. We just want to be equal and get the same opportunities as everybody else. And like you say, like even at as a teenager, you were raised to like, okay, how can I help this person? Like clearly he's struggling. Like, do you still have a relationship with that classmate, or was it kind of just an
So
in passing thing?
so over the years after that, while I still lived, because I live, across the country now.
Yeah,
But when I lived in that area, for years, I would go over and like hang out at their family's house and see them. And we upgraded him a chair at one point, and now like I say, I live across the country, so I've kind of like lost touch. But every once in a while, his mom and I will send a few messages and just check on and make sure each other are doing good still. So, I mean, that's been over a decade. So, um, it's yeah, it's I still remember it's crystal clear. It's like it was yesterday. It's one of the things I'm most proud of. I'm like old Tim. I'm like, well done, old Tim. Like, um, it's I don't know, like it's probably the most like meaningful thing. It really taught me. I always you can be taught something, but then learning it for yourself and seeing the outcome of what you can accomplish is so impactful. I think it's one of the reasons that I worked so hard to become an engineer. Rose Holman denied me like 3 times, and I wouldn't stop. And part of that was I knew that if I became an engineer, I could use those skills to make a difference in the world. And if I didn't get into where I wanted to go to college, I might not gain the skills that I need to basically fulfill, my life goals. And that all really stemmed from that first relationship and seeing the power that solving technical problems and using technology, how much power that has to impact the world positively. That's why I'm an engineer today.
exactly. And it kind of shapes you, right? I mean, you don't really get it at the time. Like you're a teenager, it's not that you're not aware, but I think it takes until you're older to realize, holy shit, like that really meant a lot to me, and basically because of your like basically creativity, it's who you are now, and I think that's so cool. And the other thing, the one of the main reasons I wanted to interview was Kalogon, and Kalogon is like, just provide a little backstory. Over the last probably 3 years, I've been dealing with pressure sores on my thighs and my bum, and it's like, what can I do to fix that? And then I discovered Kalogon. I'm already in the process of contacting you guys. I think they're gonna message me. I think I've booked a phone call for Monday, but like just having a smart wheelchair cushion to provide healing for one, for the pressure sores, but also to prevent it in future is quite amazing. Like, just for my viewers who might be interested in getting one, or looking into it, how exactly does the Calogon work?
Yeah. So the Kalogon orbiter cushion, it's designed to do, exactly what you just said. And the way it does it is we have so I'll tell you what happens when you sit down and interact with it. So when you sit down on the cushion, it'll actually detect your body, and it'll move and adjust and custom mold itself based on how you're sitting. And then, so it takes its best guess to get, the perfect molded neutral position. But then with the app, you're able to tune it based on your preferences and needs. So if you have like a pelvic obliquity or an existing sore, you can tune the cushion to either try to accommodate that obliquity or provide more offloading and more time without force and pressure in that high risk area. So you're able to tune the cushion. So it's not just a custom cushion, but it's an adaptable custom cushion that you have the power to modify. But the other cool thing is it's not just a custom molded cushion, but it's dynamic. So because we detect how you're sitting and can control all of our different air bladders independently, when you're sitting, we can take one region, let's say your back right IT, we can drop that region down and then support your body with the front right, and then like the sacral region, the back middle. And so now you're getting kind of similar to an offload or a pressure redistribution in that region locally. And the goal is to allow blood flow to come in, and then it comes up and resupports. So it's meant to augment the offload process that, compliance is basically impossible. I think, as doing 2 minutes of offloads every 15 minutes, like, what are you going to do if you're like in a class, driving, you fall asleep? Like, it's impossible. So we're trying to augment that and have localized offloads to reduce the risk of, compliance being nearly impossible in many cases.
Definitely, and it's like you say, it is impossible. Like, what if you fall asleep? What if you're in the middle of something? It's not exactly the easiest thing. And I have Duchenne muscular dystrophy, so I can barely move. So unless I have a helper put me up in my Hoyer to readjust me, I can't really do it myself. So it's like, I've been looking into it, and starting at $2,000 is sounds expensive, but it's really not. Like, you look at even a Rojo, the most expensive one's 3,000. Like, this is a smart cushion and it's less expensive, which I think is good on you guys for selling it for such a low price, because as you know, through your very first experience, like, getting funding is not always possible. And
It's tough.
it really is sad that insurance companies deny basically someone of their human right to be independent. Like, it's incredible. And if my guests want to find out more, I believe we just go to your website and you can fill out a contact form, and Calogon gets a hold of you, which is nice and easy to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head there. When we created Calogon, we said, how do we, not only create this technology, but how do we create the business structure in a way that can help us help as many people as possible, and not just be, for people that, have a lot of money, because there's a lot of different ways people get their products. And so, one thing we do offer is, for people that don't have insurance, we can work with you, and we have, I think some of the ways they call it in industry are like, like we have like hardship discounts or kind of sponsorship. We can help people out with if they don't have insurance or something like that. But the other thing is, we expect this year to get our Medicare reimbursement. We're in a good spot. We're submitting to PDAC, so we're really hopeful to have the orbiter be accessible there. But the other thing is, the orbiter isn't the only product Calogon's going to come out with. So we've got, I can't give you too much detail because it's top secret, but let's say there might be one or two smart cushions, one or two additional smart cushion products hitting the market this year. And so, the Orbiter, it's our top tier product. Like, it is the best of the best that you can get. And it will be, the best of the best, from Kalogon. But, we're working on, there are some people at the Orbiter just wouldn't be accessible. And for some people, they have different needs. And so we're looking to come out with products that help meet some of those other needs that, the Orbiter can work for, but for people with, less severe conditions, the Orbiter might be out of reach because of lack of insurance. So I know I kind of got to be super vague there, and it's probably a little lame, but keep an eye out. You're going to see some really, really cool new products this year.
Yeah, for sure. And I really like the Orbiter, just starting with the Orbiter before. Well, I mean, like you say, it is top secret, but the Orbiter, how it provides support and also helps with the pressure source, to me is amazing. Like, I've got really bad scoliosis and really bad hips, so I need support. If I don't have support, I'm in pain all the time. Like, I've got a very supportive seat, but it's almost too firm, and that's why I keep getting pressure sores. So I'll definitely be looking into the Orbiter. Like, I'm in Canada. Will that stop me at all, or can I still get it?
So technically, we can't ship to Canada yet,
Okay.
but we've had a lot of people in Canada order it and then basically forward it. But we meet all of the US standards, which are very similar to the Canadian ones,
Yeah.
but just the policies that prevent us from selling Canada just take a little bit of time. We are working on those. So like I say, we can sell to anyone. You can just, go put your credit card in for anything online, but we can't necessarily ship to Canada today.
That's okay. I can get someone to pick it up even in Buffalo or something. I could figure it out for sure. I'll definitely be looking into that though. That's absolutely a cool product that honestly I had not heard of until I think Heather, your assistant, I'm not sure if assistant is the right word, but she contacted me saying that you'd be interested in being on my podcast. So for sure, like, shout out to podcast guests, because I never would have found out about Calagon if not. And just moving on a bit, so you're also the founder and CEO of a nonprofit called Freedom Chairs. And
Yes.
basically, just to wrap it up quickly, is you provide refurbished wheelchairs to people who can't afford them. And honestly, as someone who has had trouble affording mobility, that's absolutely amazing for you to do. And just to kind of, my first question about that is, what is your favorite part about Freedom Chairs?
You know, I think it's that it never was meant to make any money, and it was just always focused on solving problems. And so the fact that the nonprofit was effectively designed just through back then people saying, here's the problem I have, and us saying, well, we can fix that, we'll figure it out. And then like we would figure out how to do it. And that's how we started increasing our services. And it's always changing. That's what I think is cool. Cause like, years ago there was, a lot of like Medicare fraud, and that red tape made it hard for people to get wheelchairs, period. They would get denied who they clearly needed it. And so we were giving away a lot of like complex rehab type chairs. And then like more recently, we started seeing the need be more, hey, my chair is taking 4 months to get repaired, and what do I do in between? So we're kind of shifting, we're always shifting and changing to the needs. So we're looking at doing more like loaners and loaning like ramps and things like that. So that's my favorite part, is it's the fact of over 10, 12 years now, it's able to continuously change and meet whatever the needs of that day are in the industry. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it sounds like too, like, as you say, like being an engineer, it's fun to, kind of work on that. And it's like, not only are you having fun working on it, but it's also helping people at the same time. So not only are you getting your creative juices flowing, but you're helping people. And I think, I mean, I can't speak for you, but I'm sure it's a very rewarding thing for sure.
It really is. It's where I discovered my passion, through Freedom Chairs. And um yeah, it's a special thing, and been such a big part of my life.
Definitely. So, well, thank you for what you do. It is quite cool. And so there's also a mission through Freedom Chairs. I'm not sure where it's at, but to help Moldova become more accessible. What kind of, how has that been going, and kind of where are you at with that mission?
Yeah, so that was a mission. We partnered with a couple of local nonprofits a few years ago to do that, and we were able. It started out with, there was a specific individual who needed mobility and just reached out to Freedom Chairs through our normal channels. And Freedom Chairs at that point was called Freedom Chairs of Indiana because we didn't do anything outside of Indiana, and we're still primarily Indiana based. But we went over and helped like get a clinic set up, get some local people trained in like what kinds of equipment people might need. There was a lot of negative social stigmas over there, and so we worked and actually got like one of the top news stories of the day for that country, talking about how a lot of the stigmas are false, and that it's one of the things that people thought people with disabilities, like the parents thought they must have done something wrong, and it's like and so they would like hide away their kids because they were embarrassed about it, and obviously that's absurd. And so getting to shed positive light, and this student that we work with, Eon, he's unfortunately passed away, but we kind of used him to try to kick off and kind of hopefully start a domino effect of change. So his whole school had a giant celebration for when he was able to go back to school. When we got him the wheelchair, we graphics wrapped the ramp that we built while we were there. And I worked with this local graphics wrapping company in Indiana called Spider Graphics. They did dirt bikes. So that's how I knew them. So they would always help out and graphics wrap wheelchairs so that they would look cool instead of like a grandma wheelchair whenever we had kids that we'd work with. And so they literally got me this giant graphics wrap for the ramp, and it said accessibility for all. It was in Moldovan, but our work was to help kind of kick that off. So we're not doing a whole lot with them these days, but our mission to really start that process, I think, was a success, and it's honestly one of my fondest memories and kind of like initiatives that I've been a part of.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. And why Moldova? I'm just curious, why did you choose Moldova specifically?
Same thing for everything with Freedom Chairs. Especially when a need's presented, I literally got just one day in my email a picture with a kid sitting on a concrete floor with a sign that says, like, in like broken English, it said, "Help me! I can't go to school. I don't have a wheelchair, and like I want to see my friends again." And I got that email, and I'm like, "All right." I remember it just being like, I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but I said, like, we're going to get you a chair. And over the next few weeks, all my nights and weekends, I was interning with a company in Detroit. All my nights and weekends were planning, how am I going to get this chair? We basically had to kind of like smuggle it over there for a few reasons. So when we're off camera, I can tell you more stories about that. But yeah, so he came to me with a problem. He needed help. I knew I could figure it out, and I did whatever it took to get him a chair.
That's amazing. Yeah, good for you. And like you say, like that kind of picture, it's like, wow, like what can I do? And if you're able to help, it's again such a rewarding feeling to just see him go back to school and see like how happy his friends and teachers were to see him again. Like that's just, oh man, like I think I'd cry if I was there probably.
It was one of the best like moments of my life to just see like, and that's honestly why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because through all that time I've just seen the technology had not improved at all. And like it's just unacceptable. Like, obviously I work in the industry now, so I need to withhold my true, how I really feel probably, but in reality it's ridiculous. Look at like the reason we did cushions. It's been 50 years since the standard of care has been improved. Like look at when the air cushion, like immersion air cushion came out. It's literally almost 50 years ago. You look at the patent, you can't see a difference. It's like you can't tell a difference between
Yeah.
what was top line then and what is considered top of the line now. Like it's unacceptable, especially when you look at how big the scale of the problem is. So that's why we left SpaceX. Was I was like, guys, like if we don't do this, clearly no one else is, because the industry has spent 50 years sitting on no innovation. And so that's why we did it. And I see the same thing in wheelchairs. There's a couple of companies I really like what they're doing in chairs now. So I think innovation is coming with power chairs, but with cushions, if we didn't do it, no one else was going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And then like you say, like how is it not changed in 50 years? It is unacceptable, but it shows that ableism is it's a systemic problem. It's not just a social problem, it's systemic. Like it really is. And you've got people with fatal disabilities that can't even get life insurance because the insurance companies say, well, you're too much of a liability. and it's just ridiculous. Like it really makes me angry. It does. Like I can see even in your face, like, yeah, like this is stupid. Like it's stupid, isn't it?
It's absurd. Like, and look at the incentive structures. Like, it's way cheaper to just keep modifying the marketing and putting a different color on a product and saying it's new than to actually put money into innovating. The appearance of innovation is a heck of a lot cheaper than actual innovation. And frankly, I think you see a lot more companies focusing on the appearance of innovation than actual true innovation, which is why we have more R&D engineers focused on seating than anyone else. Like, how is that possible? This small company, Kalogon, has more R&D engineers, and not just R&D engineers, ex-SpaceX engineers who, can build rockets and could work anywhere, that left their job because they realized that at the end of the day, if they got hit by a bus, SpaceX is going to launch the same number of rockets. But if they didn't stop what they were doing and solve this problem, it was very clear that it wasn't gonna happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is very clear. Work smarter, not harder, right?
I like it. I like it. That's the right philosophy.
Definitely. So we were talking about freedom chairs, and you had said, like, okay, it was one of the best experiences. So basically I only had one more question, and this is something I like to touch on, especially with my able-bodied allies of the community, because a lot of my disabled guests, they what they do kind of speaks for themselves, and they kind of understand. But you being an ally and an able-bodied person, you've been very charitable, very helpful throughout your career, and helping the needy and the disabled. Why do you think it's so important for people that don't have disabilities and other allies to help the disability community? Why do you think it is so vital to society?
I think it's with every so I think for society, I mean, I think it's obvious. I think what's everyone's purpose for being here? We work together to make the world a better place in one way or another. That's that's the purpose. And for me, in the same way that everyone has value, it just might be shown in a different way. Doing something that allows someone else to, be involved in the community or get out and use their gifts to improve the world. It's if I can help someone keep from having to be put in bed for months trying to prevent or heal a pressure injury, then what are they doing with that time? They're probably doing good things for the world. They're seeing family, bringing happiness and joy. And so eliminating people's limitations, I think, is one of the best ways to make the world a better place. So that's why it's so vital. And the other thing is, people don't realize it. Making something accessible for people with disabilities means it's accessible for everyone. And that's huge. That was actually the motto of the organization we worked with in Moldova. I'm going to butcher this because it's been so long since I've heard, like Romanian Moldovan, but it's like accessible, like Pentru Totu, I think it's what it was, which is accessibility for all. And so like, look at everything from ramps, elevators, door openers. Everyone enjoys that. And it's not because they put it in for everyone. They put it in for people with disabilities. So at the end of the day, society needs to focus on that, not only for the people that they're helping, but because everyone benefits, not just people with disabilities.
Exactly. That's what they call universal accessibility. It's like, if it's accessible for somebody like me, then what about a mom with a stroller, or an old lady with a walker, or someone who's broken their leg who is able-bodied that needs crutches? Like you say, it's accessible for everybody. And I think it goes over a lot of people's heads that, also a lot of the population becomes disabled with old age. So eventually you're going to need a ramp, you're going to have a sore back, sore knees, you could sprain your ankle, you could break a leg, it doesn't matter. Like, at the snap of a finger, anybody can become disabled. And I think, I'm sure as an engineer, you've heard that term, universal accessibility, and
Yep.
it's such an important aspect of society. And I think, like you said earlier, it's absurd how systemic and deep rooted ableism is. It still goes on, and there's really no excuse for it. And so you kind of touched on it a little bit, but as an able-bodied ally, if there's someone looking to maybe try to help a disabled person or try to minimize ableism, what do you think are some things that an average person can do for the disability community to make it more inclusive?
I think the first thing is just awareness. I think even myself every day, we designed the company to a lot of the processes are designed to give us as much and all of our team as much interaction as possible with, the people we serve. And so I'm constantly learning things that I do with like, I find my own unconscious biases still, and I've been, in and around the industry for a decade. So I think part of it is gaining that empathy is so important, because it's not going to be perfect. You're never going to have perfect empathy, but the awareness of like how the actions you take relating to, you know, interacting with someone with disabilities or being in charge of a design of a building. And we know everyone's crazy busy, but taking the time to make sure and consider that to make sure that you've considered all of the different people who are stakeholders who might use whatever you create. So especially people in like engineering, architecture, design type roles, absolutely those people need to make sure they have proper empathy. And so that should be taught in school. And then the other thing is, just like I say, it's the awareness, because ignorance is where a lot of problems stem. And I think there's a huge amount of ignorance that leads to ableism where people don't even realize they're doing it.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think the saying ignorance is bliss I've always hated, because it's like, yeah, maybe bliss for the person that is ignorant, but for the rest of us, especially in the disability community, like my dad, like just for an example, huge sports fan, and the PGA comes to Canada every year for the Canadian Open. And I want to say 8 years ago or so, my dad and I were at the Canadian Open, and on the 16th hole, there's an accessible viewing area. But to get up to the accessible viewing area, there was a 6-inch curb. And it was like,
Oh,
okay, well, yeah, great that you have the seating for me, but where's the ramp? And we complained and we said, like, this was Tuesday, so the tournament hadn't started. And I said, like, what is going on? Like, who decided that was a good idea? And they're like, you know what? We didn't even think of it. And that's just the ignorance. They didn't think that like my mom always used to say, a 2-inch bump might as well be a mile, because I can't get over it. Like even the power chairs now, they can't climb a curb. You think they'd be able to, but they still can't. And they actually gave us free parking for the rest of the week because I brought that up. So,
that's
like you
cool.
say, if you kind of notice something as an able-bodied person, like anybody watching this, like if you see something, speak up. It's the same thing as racism. If you see something, say something, and you may change thousands of people's lives. You don't know that. And what, like, in terms of your 10-year career, what would you like? Is there any challenges that you haven't been able to help with? Like, I'm just curious. Like,
I mean, I've had plenty of failures. A lot of times I'll look back and like there'll be people that I tried to help with, freedom chairs, and there's like, try to, create a chair, get it for them. There's been others where I tried to get one and, things fell through the crack, and I took what I think is way too long to help people. And so those are some of the things that keep me up at night. I had one individual I wanted to help in Moldova who, before I could get him a chair, like, his house caught fire, and he wasn't able to get out because he didn't have a chair. And so like those are the ones that like keep me up at night. But they're also, things like that, and really just in general, you don't find success because you ride a wave of success. You do it because you failed a lot and you did a good job learning from it and not letting your ego get in the way, from being able to learn, something from anyone. So too many failures to count. But that's, I always try to learn from them. And one thing you said of like things people can, like anyone who's, able-bodied can do there. I actually learned while we were at CES recently, there's an individual named Sasha. He runs a lot of the accessibility stuff at Google, and he showed me the amazing new features for accessibility in Google Maps. Have you seen it? Where you can turn it on and it tells you for every location whether it's accessible, and it tells you like features of like is there accessible bathroom? And it's all
Yes.
crowdsourced.
Yeah, I have seen that, and it is quite amazing. Like now, if I want to go to a concert, all I can do is go in Google Maps, and it tells me accessible or not accessible, and it's like that helps. Like that saves so much time. Because when I was younger and my parents would take me places, they would have to call ahead. You'd be put on hold. You'd be put through to this department who wouldn't know the answer, and then you'd go to another department who wouldn't know the answer. And now I find it really is taking off, and a lot of the big companies now are starting to hire people with disabilities because I've had one job in my life. I'm 30 years old. I've had one job because I can't travel on my own to said job. And because of COVID, which is when I started this podcast and this accessibility awareness journey, is I started it because there was nothing I could do. So I figured, why not shed some light on it? Because when COVID hit, people, you kind of realized how alone people are because we were all locked down and stuck in our houses, which is the reality for a lot of disabled people. Without assistance, we can't go out on our own. Like, and again, that's not speaking for everybody, but people with severe disabilities, they're stuck at home all the time. And it's like, because of COVID, like the remote work industry has really taken off. And whether it's jobs or that feature on Google, like it is getting better, but I feel like there's still a long way to go. And like you said, absurdity is really the word for it. It's just, it's crazy to me how far we've come, yet how far away we still are from being fully inclusive in society.
Yeah, and that's where you have to doing what you're doing, raising awareness is key. So like that, like Google feature is because people are flagging things as inaccessible, whether they're, able-bodied or not, any of us can flag that. So when you go to restaurants, whether you're like, don't make the person who like right now, I think one of the things that strikes me is like how exhausting it must be to have to fight a battle in day-to-day life so often just to be able to gain access to a space and like whether you're disabled or not, you can go in and leave reviews that, hey, this isn't accessible, or go in and modify and add information so that Google is accurately portraying which companies are and aren't. So that at the end of the day, if you don't have, yeah, businesses are starting to change, but until it's something that affects their bottom line, the change is going to be slow. Like Freedom Chairs can only do so much because we're a nonprofit. Like it was not like crazy scalable and is not crazy scalable. But like things like Kalogon going out, creating technology that naturally improves it and is in a sustainable business model way, or raising awareness like yourself, those are the things that actually bring about that change. And those are things that we have to do more and more of to accelerate it. Because as you said, we've come a long way, but we're not only have a long way to go, but we're not moving fast enough. And
Yes,
someone's got to change.
yeah, I don't think it's a sustainable speed. Like eventually you're just like you say, like again, as amazing as Elon and Bezos and Bill Gates and all those billionaires are, like you think one of them would focus on accessibility. Like with all that billions, Elon Musk could probably make 1 million wheelchairs in a year for people, and it would be not only inexpensive but sustainable for him. Like I'm just amazed that none of these billionaires have focused on the accessibility industry, because it, like, with all that money you could do so much. Like I've always jokingly said, like, I'm gonna get a hold of Elon and tell him to make wheelchairs because he's got all that money. And it's like, where is it going? Like, yeah, rockets and sustainability for the human race and the future of the human race is great, but how Kalogon and is one of the only companies that has a smart cushion by now, it kind of blows me away.
Well, what's super cool too is we're trying to flip the script, because one of the quotes Stephen Hawking had was that technology for the disabled can often be a proving ground for the rest of the world. So now we've got a bunch of like private aircraft companies, that these billionaires might be flying on, are reaching out to us because our seating is so much better than we have the best seating in the world. It just happens to be deployed in wheelchairs right now. So there's so many other markets and opportunities for the technology. that while, you know, elevators and everything started with disabilities, but everyone realized that it was better for everyone. Our seating may start with wheelchairs, but the rest of the world, like for once, I want technology to be better for people with disabilities before everyone else. Like, and that's what our cushion is. It's the world's best seating surface. And it just so happens to first be on a wheelchair before anyone else. And that's where we can keep pumping our money into R&D because our technology has wider ramifications. And that means that not only are people with disabilities going to keep winning because those innovations can get rolled back, we can, you know, get economies of scale to drive down cost. But that's the key, is because we considered that, we almost inadvertently made a product that everyone wants now.
Yeah, it's almost by accident, right? I mean, but being the best seating, not only just for wheelchairs, but in general, the best seating for an affordable price is just incredible. And honestly, like, thanks to you and your team for making that affordable, because my God, I have a cottage, I have a Hoyer track. I'm not allowed to get funding for another Hoyer track because I have one in my home. It's like, so I can't go to my cottage and have a Hoyer lift there because I have one in my house. That doesn't make sense. You're basically making my
You're
apartment a
confining you
jail
to your
cell.
home, which is ridiculous.
Yes, I can move anywhere. You know what I mean? It's like, but I can't get another track because I have one in my house. And now I got to do a GoFundMe to get a track to go to my cottage because my parents have worked their whole lives. We don't have a lot of money. We can't afford $8,000 for a track, which is, to me, the fact that it's $8,000. I've got friends that are welders. They said the aluminum and the metal in that lift would cost about $300 and about $500 of labor. They were like, it would cost about $1,000 at most for these companies to make money. But like you say, it's either not a product or it's too expensive.
Well, one of the things that I've started learning is the one of the reasons that things get so expensive is the way reimbursement is done actually drives up the cost for anyone private paying. Because like for us, there are so many people that are between us and the end user with reimbursement, and each of those people want to make a ton of money. So if the first person, you know, like needs to make $10, the second person wants to make 20, the next person wants to make 40. So all these crazy steps and red tape for me to get a product in someone's hand and make it reimbursable, my prices go way up because of all the inefficiency of Medicare and all the other reimbursement. And it's like, if we fix that reform, because that's one of the problems is I can't even, that's why I have to have, you know, the hardship discount, because I can't charge cheaper for someone private paying, even though what I would get through reimbursement would be like 1/3 of what someone would be private paying, but I can't charge the lower price. That's one thing that kind of frustrates me a little bit. And I'm hoping maybe we can help find some creative ways to improve that so that we can maybe create a strategy that other companies can follow in the future. But we'll see. We'll do our best.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, again, thank you. And well, that's pretty much all I've got for you, Tim. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun to talk to you, and just hopefully we can stay in touch as well.
I would love that. I would love that. And then you know, definitely like you'll probably end up talking with Zach, let him know we chatted, and we'll make sure to, you know, take care of you on an orbiter and see if it's right for you. And Zach's a good guy. And if you have any issues with that, definitely you've got my contact information.